One of the most important beliefs of the Christian faith is that Jesus, 3 days after he was crucified and died, rose from the dead. Sir Edward Clarke, KC, a leading barrister and politician in the 19th century, said this: "As a lawyer, I have made a prolonged study of the evidences for the resurrection of Jesus Christ. To me, the evidence is compelling, and over again in the High Court of England, I have secured a verdict of a case on evidence not nearly so compelling." Lord George West, another leading lawyer in the 19th century, set out to write a book disproving the resurrection, and he ended up being convinced by the evidence, and he became a Christian himself. What has led Lord West and many like him to be convinced that Jesus really did rise from the dead? The resurrection event is testified to by 5 different sources: Matthew, Mark, Luke, John and Paul. In fact, at one time, Jesus appeared to more than 500 people at once. Lee Strobel, an American journalist, puts it like this. He says that if you were to call each of the witnesses to Jesus' resurrection to a court of law to be cross-examined for just 15 minutes each, and you went around the clock without a break, then it would take you from breakfast on Monday until dinner on Friday to hear them all. That's 129 hours or so in total. The location of Jesus' tomb was well known to all. The owner of the tomb, Joseph of Arimathea, was named in all 4 Gospels. So if people wanted to know whether the tomb was really empty, they could go check it out for themselves, or they could cross-examine Joseph himself. Then there's the explosive growth of the church. The church started in Jerusalem just a few weeks after Jesus' resurrection. Some try to rationalise the resurrection and come up with alternative theories for what might have actually happened. A popular one is that the disciples stole Jesus' body from the tomb and hid it elsewhere. But why would they do this? Eventually, all of them were killed for their faith, without exception. So through all of the torture, how come not one of them let the cat out of the bag? No, when you think about it, this explanation doesn't stand up. Nor does it account for the fact that the disciples went through a massive transformation. One day, they're in hiding, they're fearful, they're defeated. And the next, they're facing hostile audiences and preaching the resurrection with confidence. What could account for this except the resurrection, which is the explanation they themselves give? And nowhere do we see a more dramatic transformation than in Paul. He was a man strictly opposed to Christianity, even murdering those who followed Jesus. Yet in one moment, in one meeting with the risen Jesus, his life is flipped upside down. He is converted and he goes on to plant much of the early church. How could this have happened if the resurrection was a lie and Jesus was in fact dead? And the transforming power of the resurrection didn't stop there. Throughout history, countless people have testified to having their lives transformed by Jesus. So what do you think? Did Jesus rise from the dead? There is more evidence still, but do you see an empty tomb? Do you see Jesus having overcome death? Do you see him having overcome yours too? What are you doing with the empty tomb?